Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out for our first summer brown bag at the TRC. We're really excited about this topic. It's near and dear to a lot of the work that we do here at the Transportation Research Center, but also especially relevant to what we do with the Vermont Clean Cities Coalition. The mission of that organization is to reduce petroleum consumption in the transportation sector. So these types of TDM programs are really important for that goal. So we're here today to talk a little bit about how marketing-based efforts, short and long-term marketing-based efforts really impact behavioral change in the long term. So Sandy Thibault is moderating today, so I'll go ahead and hand it over to you and thank everybody again for coming out.
Great, thanks for having us and thanks for the invitation. This is really a fun topic that CATMA has enjoyed for participating in for over 22 years. So I'm Sandy Thibault, the Executive Director of CATMA, the Chittenden Area Transportation Management Association. And on the panel today we have Mary Catherine Graziano from Locomotion. She's the Outreach and Education Manager. And then we have Michelle McCutcheon-Schour from VEIC, the Account Manager. Also the Outreach Coordinator for Way to Go Commuter Challenge. And we have Emma Long, Communications Manager at the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. So the discussion today is how events and challenges programs are designed to promote alternatives to single occupant vehicles and how those programs and events are working. So some of the bullet points that we have to focus the discussion today is how do we utilize these programs to create lasting change in people's behavior? What works? How do we measure it? What are the barriers? How do we overcome barriers? And some innovations and opportunities. So I think with that, we can go on to the next slide, which brings us to Michelle to talk about the Way to Go Smart Trip Challenge.
Okay, so I'm not sure how much everyone's familiar with Way to Go. I think most people are, but it has been around since 2006. We're entering our 10th year, and it's been a challenge to encourage people to bus, walk, bike, telecommute, mostly towards work. This year we decided to expand it and make it a 2-week challenge. It's traditionally been a 1-week challenge to include commutes or trips beyond the commute. Because we were getting feedback from a lot of people saying, yeah, I want to participate, but we can't really do my commute one of those ways. So what if I bike to the store or carpool my kid to their baseball game, and we decide to allow that to count. So up here are just some different marketing materials that we've come up with over the years. 2012, I think, is the gas pains one. Kind of a quirky, it's always been kind of quirky and fun. The one on the left, the zombification one, was from last year or 2 years ago when they decided to do a fall and a spring challenge. It's traditionally been a spring challenge, but they decided one year to do 2 challenges. And so it took this Halloween theme on. The Let's Make Vermont a Great Place, I think, is from 4 years ago. And then this year, we decided to take it a little bit of a different direction because, as you can see from the other ones, we've kind of always bounced around with messaging and the imagery, and we have been finding that people don't always remember that this was the challenge from last year because it always looks different. It's always a different message. And so we have tried to make the message simpler and easier to recreate each year. And so this year, it's that bottom one where you see the little kids on the bike, reclaim your ride, is going to be the main tagline, and then we've enabled to have different little sub taglines that we're hoping to kind of revamp every year. Revamp the images, but keep that reclaim your ride. We figure it's generic enough, but we can kind of manipulate it each year to make it fresh. I have no idea how long do you want me to talk to do the intro?
We're keeping it pretty informal.
Okay, all right. So I just put up the participation rates over the last, I can't believe we're entering our 10th year, but we are. You can see 2006, pretty slow. It was increasing. In 2012, we started doing it with schools. We started utilizing the Safe Routes to School program through the state to outreach to the school, and we've gotten great response from the schools. It's really resonated there. It's been a really great challenge for the kids to participate with, and some of the employees get involved in as well. And the communications, from my understanding, have never really targeted the schools. This year we decided to make some posters and stuff that really communicated with, specifically with the schools, which are not up here, was a superhero theme, and then have ones for the adults. We do survey a lot. We survey right after the challenge the participants, and then we try to survey people who don't, who participated in previous years but didn't this year. Some overall themes is that it's a lot of repeat offenders. It's usually people who've done it in previous years. A lot of times, people cite that they are already doing that type of mode, and that's why they're doing it, which is a big issue with the challenge and something that we've been looking at, because the main goal of Way to Go is to introduce people who have never done it before. We try to make it really easy, really low threshold, really friendly and fun, so that someone can go try to ride their bike or try to go carpool or take the bus without feeling a lot of pressure, or just find it something fun. We always have a ton of prizes, which usually bring people in. We usually find a correlation between people who've never done it before and the prizes and the reasons that they do it. They usually want a prize, or they're doing it because their employers really encourage them. What's interesting about this year is that we've had a drop in participation rate, but we had some of the highest traffic of new participants. And it's interesting to note because we, instead of doing as much direct outreach to traditional employers, we did a lot of social media and web presence, and that drove a lot of new participation. And so there's been discussion within our office, and we'll certainly be discussing it with CCRPC and the state, who help fund us, about, you know, participation rate has always been how we measure the success of the challenge, but we would like to start looking at who's participating as more of a success than maybe how many exactly. So
I think a little bit of history too, thinking back to 2001, I believe it was, when this type of program was actually called Curb Your Car Day. It was actually a one-day. Some of you are very familiar with that. And then it was, I guess, in 2005 when we transitioned to Way to Go, and maybe Deb has some recollection.
2004.
2004.
We made it one week.
So that's when it transitioned to Way to Go week, and now it's 2 weeks. Right?
now, it was 2 weeks this year, and it is to be determined if that will continue.
Okay.
We this year revamped it in a lot of ways. We, again, totally changed the look of it. We had people start logging their miles, which we never did. You used to just pledge prior to the challenge, and then we hoped you did what you did, and you could call up and change your pledge, but it was really messy and really bulky and a lot of admin for us to go in and change people. So now we made a web portal where people can sign on and log their miles, hoping to also make our numbers a little bit more accurate and try to really reflect what people are doing. And yes, that it was 2 weeks. And we, yeah.
And I think for CATMA, so our founding institutions, Champlain College, the University of Vermont, and UVM Medical Center, we've always used this challenge to, it's a great time of year to get people thinking about biking and walking, taking the bus. And so it's always been a fun event, or any of these challenges, to sort of give something fun for people to engage in and participate in. And in CATMA's case, we would feel pretty fortunate that we have a suite of programs to keep them continuing the mode that they use during, you know, the challenge, the bike walk challenge or Way to Go challenge. So it's certainly, you know, any type of event, you know, in the spring, it's a great time of year to get people, you know, thinking about taking their bike out. So we love it. It's really fun.
Yeah, and it's had, there's a lot of people who really love it, and I think it really helps engage those businesses who are really behind it, and it helps them kind of bring in new people. So it's definitely doing what it needs to do, but we're, trying to look at how do we carry that work out beyond, because in Chittenden County we have a lot of great partners, and we have partners throughout the state, but they just don't have the same resources to promote this stuff year round.
Or services necessarily.
Or services, or the infrastructure, you know, encouraging someone to bike year round in some areas of Vermont. It's difficult. And that that was interesting about the school side of it this year was we saw a little bit of a drop, and we had calls from a few of the schools saying that they were dropping out because of the bike deaths that we had right before the challenge. So there was a few things working against us this year. That didn't help. The fact that gas prices were really cheap didn't help. Kind of the peak of the non-school participation was in 2012, and that was when gas prices were very high.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm curious, I've just heard a little bit about it, but the fact that it was 2 weeks instead of 1, is that just based on like to get more people involved, or like extending that?
Again, to like make the trips beyond just the commute. So
Yeah.
before we were doing Monday through Friday, and it was just commuters, and we wanted to include a weekend. We wanted to expand it out to 2 weeks to also, if the weather was bad, we'd seen some previous years where if it rained that entire week, it really dropped participation. So, and in our survey back, a lot of people, I know I can look at the numbers, but it was a very high response rate that supported the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was definitely more to run, but we think it was a success.
Yeah.
And it also compensates for people who would be away during that week or just completely incapable of doing it that 1 week and give them another opportunity later on. Thought that was really smart.
Yeah, thinking about the challenges for other rural areas of the state where they might not have, transit services or infrastructure in place. I'm sort of curious how many folks sign up as a telecommuting during those couple of weeks, and maybe that's an opportunity, that we should be, focusing on and promoting for those that,
I put on much of my time telecommuting.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it was something we're working with communications on, because not everyone realizes telecommuting is a part of that suite of options. It's difficult if the business is not supportive of that.
Right.
Which I'm working continuously throughout the year to work with businesses to get them to develop policies, to be more comfortable with it, to recognize positions that could telecommute that they don't think could telecommute, because there's a lot of like, oh, this person has to be in the office every day. Well, maybe they don't. So yeah, I think it's a great option throughout the state, but I think there's still a lot of work. We don't, as a challenge, particularly in my position, if the company's not behind telecommuting, I don't like to go in there and promote it if they're not.
Yeah.
We don't want to be that entity that's going in and telling employees they shouldn't telecommuting when they don't want them to be.
Right.
Yeah. So
It's a challenging mode, I guess. for
yes, yeah.
businesses.
Michelle, you mentioned that you may or may not do this next year's particular challenge. I'm wondering because the participation was lower this year, but it does sound like as far as reaching that goal of introducing new people to a different mode, that there was a little bit of a success there based on the people that did participate. And so, is there something that we could take and run with on that?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I wasn't saying that we weren't going to do the challenge. We might not do it for 2 weeks.
Got it. Okay.
That's what we're trying to
Thanks for
determine.
clarifying.
Yeah, if
Great.
we're going to do
Just
it for a
changing that
week
word.
or if we're going to do it for 2 weeks. In outreach, what I was anecdotally experiencing was that a lot of people felt that 2 weeks was too long to do this. And then I had to step back and do a lot of explanation of you don't have to do it for the whole 2 weeks. You just have to pick a trip and do it. But then in our survey responses, there was a lot of support for the 2 weeks. So there was this initial, and that's right, that surveys always can change your perspective on something. Prior to going to the surveys, we're like, maybe we shouldn't do it for 2 weeks. Maybe it turned away too many people who thought this 2 week dedication was too much. Got the surveys back, and we're like, okay, well, then maybe we should. So it's just an internal dialogue that hasn't been determined if it will continue for 2 weeks or if it will just be 1 week again. We want, though, there's a lot of support to keep a weekend in. So it may just be a full 7 days instead of the 10.
Right. I think with that, I want to give all our folks here presenting today a chance to talk about their events and challenges, and then we can open it up for questions after we're finished. So with that, we'll move on to the Vermont Bike Walk Challenge.
Excellent. So this year we actually did a completely new thing with the Vermont bike walk challenge. First of all, in the previous years, it was in collaboration with the National Bike Challenge, and we were a state participating nationwide amongst other participating states, and it was only about biking. It was also focused on miles, and the National Bike Challenge is a really amazing challenge. It's great. It's really motivating. It's 5 months long. It's a pretty big commitment, and there are people who really connect to this challenge. It's great for people who want to increase their fitness or find more reasons to bike or just track their miles. And it has a really big following in Vermont. There are a lot of dedicated bicycle riders who really love the National Bike Challenge. And so we kept that kind of going on the side as a Vermont challenge, just to allow people to participate in it. But we did some thinking over the winter about what we wanted in a challenge, and a lot of the feedback we are hearing during our recruiting is, I don't bike. So immediately we were taking a whole bunch of people who could be getting more active and engaging in active transportation. We're cutting them right out of the challenge. So we wanted to find a way to include those folks. We also found that the challenge, success in the challenge is biased towards people who would naturally ride many miles in a day. They try to weight it by giving you 20 points for every day that you ride. But there are a significant, so impressed, a significant number of people who will ride every day 20 miles, which is awesome. And what it does, though, is it creates a group of people who are definitely going to win the challenge because they've structured their lives around bicycling a lot. And the people we're trying to engage are people who don't structure their lives around bicycling and walking a lot. So the National Bike Challenge is really great for those dedicated people who want to track their miles and engage in an already dedicated community of people on bikes. And we wanted to refocus on people who wouldn't necessarily do this their first time, you know, as their first choice. And give them reasons to get outside and get on their bikes and get, you know, get their running and walking shoes on. So we focused instead of miles, which again biases towards people who do that a lot, and focused instead on trips. So, and the trips, we define them rather loosely as whatever feels meaningful to you. Because for different people, that level of activity feels different. So for somebody who's very fit and athletic, you know, a 5-mile run is a meaningful trip. But for somebody who is really just starting to move their bodies for the first time in a long time, parking your car further away on a big parking lot and walking there is actually a meaningful trip. So whatever feels like a change to you, something meaningful. So we left that loose, which stresses out a certain personality, but most people really got into it. And because I didn't want to be dealing with half numbers or getting a bunch of questions about quarter trips, I said one way is a trip, and the way back is a trip. So if you walked to the post office and walked back, that was 2 trips. And in fact, if you decided to really make it, you know, kind of event of it, and, you know, bike to the post office, and parked your bike, and then walked to the grocery store, grabbed some groceries, and walked to the daycare center and picked up your kid with your armful of groceries, and then walked back to your bike. That was actually several trips. That's like 10 trips. Yeah, it adds up. But that was the point. The point was to kind of give people like really easy and good excuses to move more. Oh, if I just walk over here, I can add that to my trip log for today. If I just, you know, walk to my lunch place instead of driving there, I've added myself another trip. So really easy, quick compoundable points was where we were going with that. And it worked. We had our 2 top runners were people who really just took the challenge and ran with it, and they lost like 22 pounds over that month period. So each. So we had people really sort of seize it and go with it. And
We could go to the next slide. Yeah, I think this ties into what you were talking about.
so the point was to get people who don't normally move to move, and to give them really good reasons to move. And we structured our prize system as another easy way to really get motivated. One was if you signed up, you were instantly eligible for just a whole bunch of smaller prizes, or you could register for some really fun prizes. And then once you reached bronze, you were actually eligible to win bigger prizes. You reached silver, you were eligible to receive even more. Gold, it was like a $50 gift card or some other nice item I had. And then we actually had a platinum winner for 500 trips. I was amazed. She automatically won the $150 gift card. She was the only one. She was amazing. And what that does is it gives you, your behavior allows you to have a better chance at winning prizes, which again motivated people to participate and really add in. So we focused on our main goals, which was to increase people's likelihood to engage in active transportation, biking, walking, running, engage people who aren't already doing it. So we love our super fit, super active lifestyle folks. I'm so glad they're around because they inspire all of us and they're doing great things. And we need to reach those people who are not doing that already. So that's who we're targeting. We need to make a challenge that appeals to them and feels easy and rewarding. And then provide a structure that allows those regular people to feel like they can actually be successful and do a good job in the challenge. When I was participating in the National Bike Challenge, I'd be like doing my best, and I'd be like number 300 in the challenge. I was like, oh. So I mean, I would compete against myself and try to do better, every year and try to achieve, gold status and stuff. That's nice, but wouldn't it be really nice to actually have a fighting chance to do well in this challenge? That's kind of what I brought into it, just from my own perspective. So I learned a lot at this challenge. There's a lot of things going on. We were trying not to compete with other local challenges, so we started later, which is great because I thought that was a really awesome collaboration. Unfortunately, the National Bike Challenge didn't get the memo. Not that they would, but so they started 2 weeks before us, so a whole bunch of people who might have participated in the Vermont Bike Walk Challenge were already participating in the National Bike Challenge. And that was cool. I was really glad they were there, but it sort of took a bite out of our numbers a little. But that's okay, because again, those people are usually dedicated riders, and they already had a love affair with the National Bike Challenge, and who was I to mess with that? So I reached out to more non-traditional people. My Facebook social media posts that I put out that I targeted and paid boosting advertisements for were for people who are interested in getting more active but may not have had that chance to move forward. So I targeted things like people who are interested in dieting or weight loss or increasing their fitness. That kind of thing, and I just tweaked it instead of people who are interested in bicycling, because that's a different cohort of folks who, and then also included things like environmentalism and sustainability, and people who might be looking for different ways to make their own lives more sustainable. And that actually works out really well. I had a whole bunch of odd little icons, logos in the back, which I will explain later in the previous slide for IHOP and PetSmart and Texas Roadhouse and Old Navy. I'll actually explain that now to kind of demonstrate that we actually are pretty successful at getting non-traditional folks. Normally, when Locomotion runs a challenge, we, as a statewide transportation advocacy organization, we get a lot of people who are already really active and love to bike and love to run and love to walk and love to hike, and they're just super athletic and fit and just already on the team. And whenever we win challenges and we're like, here, you pick your own, you know, we'll buy a gift certificate to any shop you want. It's kind of what I put out there so that people aren't like, I don't really want a gift card from this, and then they decide not to participate. It's an open table of whatever shop they want. And whenever I do it to a regular constituency, I get requests for our local shops. You know, Ski Rack and North Star and Outdoor Gear Exchange and Earl's, and those are the gift cards they want. And I did it with this challenge. I got requests for gift cards for the Christmas Tree Shop, PetSmart, Texas Roadhouse, Old Navy, and IHOP. That is really different. That is just like a huge shift from what we normally get. And it spoke of how we transferred our audience a bit. So I found that really fascinating and cool. Can we go to the other slide?
Did you follow through with incentivizing from IHOP in Texas?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was pretty neat. So one thing I discovered halfway through my challenge is I had these really fun incentive prizes to get people to be interested in signing up. And they were like a reflective button-down, like regular dress shirt that was reflective. I had a light-up bicycle helmet. I had Ortlieb panniers. And I was like, well, I need some walking stuff. And that's where I got a little more generic, with like Fitbit and that kind of thing. And I found that I probably ought to have really just gone generic across the board, right? Because I was creating prizes for our normal constituency. Regular Locomotion folks would have been like, score, a light-up bicycle helmet, awesome. The people I was, really trying to target, what? Why would they want a reflective button-down shirt? That's just weird. So they were really interested in the Fitbit, so those were hugely popular. So next year we do this again. I'm gonna try and get a little bit more across the board interesting and appealing, as opposed to being just kind of bike walk targeted. It's a lesson I've learned from this year. So the opportunities are again to realign prizes. My platform, because of a tight budget, was not as slick as it could have been. It was easy to use, but it wasn't slick. And I would have preferred a more visually appealing. We are now very spoiled when it comes to the internet and what we encounter on it. And there's just a lot of very beautiful things. Like the Way to Go challenge was gorgeous. I was deeply envious of you guys. And that, I think, is something that is needed. And figure out a way to consolidate some challenges, or we tried this year. We really did, to make everything be more meshed together, but it's just a challenge. So I don't know what can be done, but it would be nice if we could do it. And I recognize there's a lot of challenges, but I've heard from a lot of people that they're already involved in such and such challenge and they're already maxed out. They're done. They've committed to their one challenge and that's it. And that's cool because people are busy. They have their other things to do and they are not interested in raising our numbers for our grant reporting. That's not their job. So
I think that's a really good discussion point that we could probably get into, is the diverse challenges that we have and events and, sort of the pros and cons of that. Before we move on, Emma, I just wanted to check in with you about if you can talk just briefly about the participation in the challenge. I didn't see any.
Right, no numbers for me. So that was one of the disappointments this year, was that in the past we'd had about 800 folks participate in the National Bike Challenge, and this year, and there was like hardly any overlap, which was great. We had about 300 or 400 people participate in the Walk Bike Challenge. The geographical spread was wider, which is interesting. And like I said, there wasn't much overlap. So I think what I've got on hand right now is a whole brand new program that I have to grow again. So the National Bike Challenge had already grown and was flourishing. And this was just a baby that needed to have more marketing and more engagement and just more years under its belt for it to.
So there was 800 in the National Bike Challenge this year? Or
This year, actually, it was also fairly low because we didn't throw our marketing behind it this year. We made it clear that we were doing something else. And also, we directed a lot of people to other challenges.
Right.
So that I think they made some of those choices as well.
Do you know the numbers for the national bike share?
So 22 or 300
Okay.
active.
So together, it wasn't that big of a drop. It was just sort of split.
Exactly.
Yeah, and for a first year program, I think that's great, participation.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to Emma to talk about some initiatives through the Go Chittenden County initiative.
Sure, thank you. So part of what I've been involved in, I've been at the Regional Planning Commission as a communications manager there for a couple years, 2 years in October. And part of what I've been involved in, aside from pretty much every aspect of like land use and transportation within the organization, is Go Chittenden County, and kind of jumping into that. Brian Davis, some of you know, most of you probably know Brian. So he and I have worked pretty closely on some outreach initiatives for Go Chittenden County, which is essentially a one-stop resource for all things transportation in Chittenden County. So I had the logos up there of all the partners. Obviously, a big collaborative effort among a lot of different professionals in this area. So it's a really the website, it is intended to be a one-stop resource. So part of the challenge with that is to get people to come to the website and to get people to know that that this exists, that they can pick up a phone and call a number and get somebody online that's going to know, the answer to their question, be able to help them really quickly, or send an email. So leading into that, there's just a couple examples of some ads that we've run. So the Make Your Commute More Fun on the top, that's actually run on the CCTA buses. So you may have seen that going around town. And I think that's actually on right now. I saw it semi-recently. So, and then so the three other ones are ones that Brian and I have done since I came on board. That's Brian's little baby. He had a baby with his wife last August or last June. So we naturally, she rose to the top of our advertising. But so part of it is just to keep it fun, to keep it interesting. So the Got the Commuter Blues one, obviously, crying baby. We ran this one as a winter campaign. So leading up to, I think it was in November, getting people to say or to think about, do I really want to go out in the morning and scrape all that ice off my car, or the bus is already warm, can I take the bus? So we had essentially with each one of these, it was coupled with a front porch forum campaign as well. So these ads were run in local papers, and we used, at the Regional Planning Commission, we used Front Porch Forum pretty frequently as an outreach tool to engage with our municipalities. So we have the ability to post to every individual Front Porch Forum within Chittenden County. Like Burlington alone has 20 separate Front Porch Forums, neighborhoods essentially. So a really good opportunity, something that worked really well for us, was to run these ads in the papers, and simultaneously do a Front Porch Forum campaign that offered, we did have prizes that we offered and stuff, but we ran them per town. So, made them really targeted. So hello Richmond, here's, some examples for this town. So it wasn't just like a blanket mass thing, like take the bus, whatever. Made it a little more personal. And the call to action was just to call with your question. Do you have a question about a bus route? Do you have a complaint? Do you have a suggestion? anything, just get in touch with somebody at Go-Chitney County. And it works pretty well. We had, I think, with the winter one, I think we had around 70 people call as a result, which sounds kind of small, but in the grand scheme of things, like it's really great that, you know, we reached those people and they all had a question, like they had something that they, you know, wanted answered. And I think similarly, we ran the Be a Happy Commuter, sort of a happier take on things, in the spring. And I think we had around 50 people call at that time as well. So, you know, just we found Front Porch Forum to be really valuable for us, you know, as an organization, but also with Go-Chitney County, just reaching sort of a different, you know, group of people who, you know, clearly have questions and clearly, you know, we can help them out in that respect. So that's just sort of a background on that little piece. So if anyone has any questions.
And just to add to that, VEIC actually manages the call center that takes in the calls for this. And on a monthly basis, we probably get about 20 to 30 calls just in general about Go Vermont. But when these ads are run, we see at least double to triple the call volume. So it's definitely, we definitely see the impact, and people are really engaged with questions about things.
Great, yeah.
I did want to talk. Front Porch Forum is great. I'm totally jumping in. We actually have a cadre of what we call Front Porch Forum ambassadors across the state. Regular folks who will post things that we suggest. You know, that we create the text for them, and we just send out an email to them saying, "Hey, can you post this on your Front Porch Forum?" And, you know, having those ads on the top has been hugely helpful. And it's also really helpful to have an individual just say, "Hey, I'm from your community and I'm engaged in this thing. Give it a shot." So Front Porch Forum is pretty brilliant.
Do you happily have to pay for that space, or sometimes do they donate it?
We have paid, and we've also used the CCRPC's.
Yeah, like we pay, I think it's a yearly fee or something, and we get 2 posts, like as a regional organization, we get 2 posts per month that go out to the whole community, like at once. But we have unlimited, you know, if we're just targeting one specific community. So, like I'll post it from myself. Like we haven't really experienced or experimented with the advertising piece of that so much. It's just like me writing to the community essentially. And we do get a fair response from, you know, sort of doing the whole blast of the whole region, but we found way greater success just targeting specific towns and even specific neighborhoods within those towns.
So like for the Rutland post, would you say this is where your parking right is and these are the times buses come?
So we didn't get that specific. We were just sort of trying it out, but that is where I would like to go with it, is instead of just saying like making it a little personal with a few kind of things, really kind of digging in. It takes a lot more effort, obviously, if you're doing that per town, but I think it yields a lot better result in the end. So that's where I would like to see it go, is with the next kind of campaign that we do, is to make it, you know, a lot more personal essentially for that town. So
I do have to say, if you get the person to call in though, the people who answer phones don't have the time limit to how long they're allowed to stay on the phone with them, and they can walk them through pretty personally. Like I know, because I get the report of everything they talk about in each call, and they will, if someone says like, I live here, I work here, how can I get back and forth? They will sit on the phone with them and try to figure it out. So I think getting them to call in is a really amazing tool to then get them into there, because they can then walk through that really personal side of it with them.
for sure.
I'm just thinking about our generation would never call.
I know.
I know. Well, they can email.
They can email. But you're right. I mean, it's sort of like giving them little snippets, like, so, you know, they can go on their way and look it up. Yeah. You know, if they don't want to take the time to call or email too. So that's a good thing.
Great, well, thanks. I just wanted to touch a little bit on CATMA, just a couple of minutes on some of the follow-up that we do with our folks that participate in these events and challenges. As I mentioned, you know, I feel pretty fortunate that we have a comprehensive suite of incentives and programs for employees and students at our membership. And one in particular I just wanted to touch upon, what is our Bike Walk Reward Program. Katie, if you would like to just talk a little bit about that program and some of the incentives that we
Yeah. So this program is the Bike Walk Rewards program. It's been around probably 2001, I believe. So and it's changed a little bit over time in how we reward an individual in our membership for biking and walking to and from work. But primarily we ask that you would commit to biking and walking at least 3 days a week, and you can be rewarded every 2 months. That's the simple sort of way to say it. This past spring, we just put our rewards program online. So tracking it a little bit different, we're having members log each trip through sort of a portal, through a commuter profile portal through our website. So we're really excited about that. We have seen a lot of new users since we put it online. The number of users in the program hasn't changed quite yet. We haven't seen that yet, as far as seeing, like, let's say about 200 employees participating each cycle or every 2 months. But a lot of new users, I think, to speak to, hey, we have this program, you know, enroll in CATMA in general, enroll in this program. It used to be a paper type thing. Now it's online, it's a click away. You have people that are engaging a little bit more. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting to have that program online, as Abby was just mentioning with her generation. They want a convenient, you know, portal to get information quickly and log their commutes. Another important piece that we spend a lot of time on is education and outreach. You know, we are continuously having events at work sites. People really look for some hand-holding out there. You know, how do I ride the bus? Do I need the exact change? In the case of Champlain and UVM, they participate in unlimited access with our partnership with CCTA, where they can ride any bus, local or commuter or link routes for free simply by swiping their college or university ID through the fare box, which makes it really easy and convenient. So with that, you know, we have to spend a lot of time letting people know that, you know, working with orientation and wellness, transportation and parking, upper management, to really push this information on our programs out there. And it's been very successful. And thanks to Katie's efforts, because she does a great job, you know, reaching out to all our constituents.
I think, Sandy, just to speak to that, like we really, and I think you said this already, we really take these challenges or events as opportunities to speak to our employees as that fun thing that's sort of going on. And then, as you said, again, you know, saying what you said already, but just we have the opportunity to then keep talking to them to try to continue that behavior change. Like if they were able to do it through that event or through that challenge, you know, can you keep doing it, and here are all the resources, and how can we help you make that happen and make that sort of lifestyle change, even if it's 1 day a week.
And I'm excited that Erin from the Upper Valley TMA is here today. There are 2 TMAs in Vermont, CATMA and the Upper Valley TMA, and I think we can open the floor to questions, and I'm looking to you sort of as the
Don't put me on the spot.
The rural areas, you know, and how you know, how these challenges and events, you know, work in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, not too many communities in the Upper Valley use front porch forum. We have free town listservs, so we have promoted the challenge through that. We had actually the national bike challenge winner a couple of years ago, Kyle Allerson, I think is how he pronounces his last name. He logged, you know, 30 miles a day forever. So there we have our dedicated folks as well. But he was the national winner, I think, in 2013.
The national
He was the national winner, yeah. Commuted from Heartland to Dartmouth College. One challenge we face, and I think they face this in Brattleboro, and then perhaps some of the towns that border New York as well, as the messaging to Vermonters is so strong, and then there are so many people live in New Hampshire or Massachusetts or New York who, you know, might work in Vermont workplaces, or they live in Vermont and work, you know, in another state, and the marketing becomes a little confusing sometimes. That's been our biggest struggle, I would say, over the past 5 years, is saying, no, this can be inclusive, borders don't matter that much.
Back when they did did the campaign, make Vermont a better place. I remember they had also done make New Hampshire a better place to try to you know, work with some of the groups you work with on there.
Yeah, and you know, that worked to some extent. And then we also got feedback on both sides of the border saying, well, what's wrong with Vermont? Why do we need to make it better? What's wrong with New Hampshire?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was helpful that year when we had some New Hampshire-centric marketing materials. You know, I think we probably tend to go after carpooling and transit during these challenges a little more because of the rural nature of the Upper Valley.
Yeah, I'm really interested in coming back to the first question, and you've talked about measures, particularly in participation and interaction and feedback in terms of quality of the experience of participating. How are you looking, and this is particularly for the CATMA and the Upper Valley, is how are you measuring or seeing an increase? You know, are the events actually resulting in more people long-term participating in the program or in these activities? And is there and then can you say there's a correlation between participation in the events and change in behavior and increased numbers of participants?
I'm going to turn to Kate.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak generally. You know, we've tried to, since I came on board with CATMA, to try to look at the participation in these events with our great partnership with everyone. They sort of entrust us with, you know, information on who these, you know, people are, what they look like. And so then we can say, are they currently members of the CATMA community? And if they're not, you know, are we able to change them and bring them into the CATMA community? And I can generally say, like, at least in the last 2 years that I've really been looking at it, we can see about 10% of those people that participated in one of the challenges that wasn't a CATMA member already have become CATMA members, and they're doing something different, and they're participating at a different level, whether that's once a week or more. And I haven't really dived into what that is. And then of course we have like our long-term, more our CATMA general survey, transportation surveys for employees and students. And so that gives us more sort of in-depth data. We don't really take in from there whether that person or that individuals are participating in those challenges to speak. We do ask generally, like, you know, are they aware of these types of things? You know, to see if there's anything that we can watch and track there.
I would say, and the Upper Valley, I would say maybe a third of people who participated in Way to Go claimed that they were new to whatever mode they were trying, and then about half of those, so let's just say 15%, said that they decided to do something new long term.
That's great.
Which is pretty significant.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, I'd like to see a bigger, you know, we have such a large group of people, of CATMA members that participate each year, and it's really, again, you know, try to take those opportunities to talk to new commuters. One thing I can't necessarily see is tracking it out through the summer. Like, we'll look through a couple months.
Right, and then years out. Too.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know.
if you first participated in Way to Go in
Right.
2011 and you decided to bike that week,
Right.
are you still doing it? I don't have any way to track that. But.
Yeah, we see big, you know, jumps in numbers when there's a large orientation that goes on, or there's sort of a bigger campaign around that's more focused in on the business. So, you know, we see it at different times of the year. So
yeah, it was interesting because from working with the businesses, it seems as if Way to Go worked really well to bring people together and build that community to kind of support each other in making these decisions, right? Because it does, especially carpooling and van takes a lot of support. But then if you're walking and biking, you know, all right, well, what do you do when you're sweaty and you get to work, or where do you hike your bike, or what do you do with your bike helmet? You know, these sorts of things are really good to communicate with one another. This year, with such a high influx of people just going to the website and coming in through social media rather through their employer, I'm interested to see how we continue I've been trying to brainstorm how do we continue to keep that motivation going beyond that if they're more aggregate and they're not like a supportive group. So.
We did have a fall, challenge
Yeah.
the year before.
Mhm.
And thinking about this sort of ongoing, education and awareness. But I think to your point, it's really the employers that need to push and promote, this type of, travel behavior change and participation in events, having them behind it on a regular ongoing basis is really important.
And I would say for me personally, this is my first year working on Way to Go, but the biggest value was learning who those champions were in the businesses and building connections with them, because it may not be actually the manager or the HR person or someone you traditionally think is going to be that person who's going to be pushing this initiative. It's just that person that really loves their bike or that wants to carpool and just needs other people to carpool with them, and finding those champions and really supporting them and then continuing to support them throughout the year, I think is really important. And Way to Go has a lot of great attributes, but for me, that was like the most value, is starting to be able to identify who those people in the businesses were to talk to.
I think ongoing incentives are very important, and that's where the Bike Walk Rewards program is pretty impressive. That's year round. Every time you do it, you can get your gift certificate to City Market or wherever.
We're finding the same in the Capital Commuters Program in Montpelier as well. We have some survey results on that, but I will get back to your question on how are you measuring. I need to interrupt you.
Well, I was going to make, since I've been a CATMA Bike Walk Board user, I was just going to make one data entry point, which was that I would love it if I could log in and do a week's worth of travel at a time instead of having to log in every day and do one day at a time. That would make my life that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we're working on trying to make some improvements with the new online program, but that's good
Thanks for
feedback.
your feedback.
Noted. And working on it.
Deb, did you have some other?
Yeah, I was
comments?
just going to get back to Len's question on are you measuring, and we have measured over time, and the surveys are showing, and post surveys have showed continued participation. We did some surveys a little bit later in July, some years of the Way to Go Challenge, speaking of the Way to Go Challenge, and people were continuing to, it was a high percentage were continuing to do the mode that they selected during the fun week-long effort. And I really, when you look at the numbers statewide, when you look at the champions, like you see in the room here, you actually see slats of participation where that level of effort is happening. So when you have a Paul Cameron and Broward and Aaron, or all of these guys working statewide, you can actually see the hot spots. So it is the level of effort of TMAs and the sustained level of effort, I think, and hearing.
Yeah, this is the map of participation.
Great.
I don't know if you can pass that around, but
Great.
Deb is completely correct about that.
And the other thing, in the picking up on the Bike Walk Rewards program that CATMA's done for years, the state decided to address a parking problem in Montpelier 2 years ago. Again, another challenge, another rewards program, but we have, and I think about how you actually get the tipping point to happen, having been in this business for 100 years, it seems. We have 17% of Montpelier state-based employees participating. And research says it's about 12 to 14% we're supposed to get that going in terms of, and we're in our third year and we're looking to go to 1,000 participants. And there's different models on how to do that. And I think a great conversation that the TRC could sponsor or continue to sponsor on the research side of this is to take a hard look, and I don't know if that's what you're doing now, take a hard look at these and the effectiveness of what we're doing and how we transform Vermont and from our car-centric SOVs to high occupant vehicles and more active lifestyles and higher quality of life.
And that's where, you know, my question goes to in the long term. So is CATMA, you know, seeing this upward movement of people acknowledging that they're doing something? And are we, you know, actually capturing data about change of behavior, or are we just doing a better job of capturing what people are already doing?
Mm-hmm.
So when I entered, you know, the CATMA thing, my behavior wasn't particularly changed from before. I just started entering it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm curious about is what kind of tools are you thinking about in terms of really trying to understand over time the change and shift in behavior that all this is really trying to focus on?
Right, and you know, as Katie mentioned, you know, we have the CATMA biennial employee transportation survey of all our members and student transportation survey. So we certainly can see the reduction in drive allowance from that survey, whether it's through CATMA's education and programs or their participation in the Way to Go challenge or bike challenge. We had a 74% drive alone rate in 2000, and in 2014 it's reduced to 54% for the Hill employees in particular. And for students, we see that there's been a significant decrease in students bringing cars to campus and to Burlington due to the comprehensive programs that we have. As far as you know, is participating in the Way to Go or bike challenge changing their behavior in the long run, I think we base that on, you know, the number of people that do join CATMA, as Katie mentioned, afterwards in the event. And there used to be a question when registering for Way to Go, is this a new commute for you, or how do you typically commute? So I don't know what the data responses on that. I mean, that would be interesting to look at. You know, is this new, you know, are you trying biking for the first time? Do you typically drive alone? So I don't know if that is in the registration anymore.
It's not in the registration, it's in the after survey.
Okay.
And this year, 38% of respondents said that they were first time participation in, and that's where that number is much higher than it has been in previous years. And that's where I think the social media web presence made quite the difference in reaching out to new individuals.
I don't know where we are on time.
We have 2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes. I think leaving it on a positive note, you know, I want to thank everyone for coming today and all our panelists here. I guess, you know, are there any burning opportunities on people's mind that we can improve on these challenges? I was thinking about, you know, we do have a lot of challenges and events, and I think there's pros and cons to that. I think pros are people can choose, you know, what event they want to participate in depending on their schedules or, you know, what they find, you know, attractive. And sort of the cons is I have to sign up for Way to Go, I have to sign up for the bike challenge, I have to sign up for CATMA, I have to sign up here. So, you know, I think there's pros and cons. So I guess I open the floor for a couple minutes on any thoughts.
I'll just speak to the jump in school participation this year. Rested heavily on the fact that we got Way to Go to match the week that we do International Walk to School Day. So we already had heavy participation in that, but in past years it was the week. Way to Go was the week before, or the week after actually. So everybody did walk to school, and then getting them to now re-sign up and do another thing the next week versus double points, right? They got points for Way to Go and they got points for International Walk to School Day for Safe Routes to School. So I do think that there is there's and that wasn't requiring them to sign up for both. That was like the coordinator making sure that they were registering and understanding. So making them sort of synergistic instead of separate. And I think across the board, people get really fatigued from signing up and tracking stuff. So like if these partners could just come together and agree on like one event that addresses your needs, I think you would see huge numbers of increased participation across the board. So I don't know what that looks like, but
I also think there's a conundrum about the need to track and see these things that we want to know about and changing behavior and just having fun with it. And I believe that there's a much wider spread to our programs than pushing a button and tracking it. So I would invite the whole monitoring and tracking to happen at a higher form or higher level rather than each challenge trying to track something, and leave the fun factor in this and the introduction factor, and then come back and have survey coordinated, maybe on a coordination basis, happen at a appropriate level through gas sales decline, bike sales increases, you know, IHOP visits.
Another thought I just had too, thinking about way to go is, you know, we have the awards for participation. I wonder if, you know, there's an opportunity to look at new participants, you know, people that are trying a mode for the first time that sign up versus sort of people that, you know, regularly use other modes, like, and sort of distinguishing the groups is the thought.
Yeah, I mean, so the truth behind the prizes is that we're usually at capacity to which prizes get used for what.
Right.
And so there's always this like debate behind the scenes of, all right, who do we reward this year?
Right.
So I mean, it's definitely something we can put on the list. Unfortunately, if we do that, that means one group loses, you know, other prizes. So, but it's certainly an easy thing to track. Again, we've been tracking it after the fact, not so much during the challenge, mainly because, and it's something that participants did pretty universally say was that the sign-up process was too long. So to add more questions in that sign-up process, that was part of the reason we removed some things, was like we wanted to make, you're signing up and having the log, we didn't want to add more questions. So.
One thing I just wanted to point out too before you cut off, but we do have a statewide walk bike summit as well, which is, I think, so the 2014 was the first year that we did the statewide summit, and it was in Burlington, and we had over 250 people, which it's a little easier in Chittenden County. Everybody can kind of, you know, come on bike and whatever. But so in 2016, it's going to be in Rutland, and so we're currently working now with a bunch of different partners on trying to, you know, figure out that whole schedule, what that event looks like, and planning pretty far in advance. So that's going to be every 2 years as far as we know. So that could be, you know, another opportunity on a statewide level for people to, you know, get engaged, and figuring out who to target for that is tricky. Like there's the transportation professionals, and then there's just like the average person who just likes to walk or they like to bike or whatever. So figuring out sort of a happy balance between those and making that into a big event could be, you know, something in the future that we'll see. This is, again, only the second one in 2016. So
we convene a group called the Vermont Transportation Efficiency Network on behalf of V-Trans, and we did a meeting in Rutland that focused on biking and walking 2 years ago.
Oh, great.
And yeah, there's some great resources there.
Yeah.
And we were able to engage the Department of Health and then the Mayor's office. And
yeah, that's great. Yeah, the Department of Health is involved in this too. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and ideally maybe have it in Southern Vermont too 1 year. So the idea is to spread it around the state and not just kind of stick into the county. So we'll see how that goes. That's great.
I was sort of thinking, just because it feels like these are trying to be opportunities to change behavior, right? So I feel like maybe, since it almost seems like, for example, Way to Go is sort of in this plateau, like we're not really gaining anybody, it's just kind of like in this weird space. Maybe what's going to give it a push is a longer awareness, so that we should be talking about Way to Go and all of these options all year leading up to the Big Bang, which will be the event. It feels like to me that Way to Go should be a tactic used in order to support a message that you've been trying to convey all along. Because for us, I know you've heard me say before, for transit, it's difficult to know if Way to Go actually helps us. And for us, it costs us a lot of money to invest in a free ride day, not knowing if we're really growing or if we're really retaining ridership. But if we had a greater awareness, then people are thinking about it, and then, oh, right, Way to Go is coming up, and maybe this is a good time, instead of, oh, Way to Go is coming up, what am I going to do? Right. Just an idea.
It's good feedback. So thank you, Abby, and the TRC for inviting us
Well,
today.
yeah, thank you, CATMA, for doing all the legwork and getting our panel together and making this happen. We really appreciate you guys coming and being our partners in this brown bag.
Right.
So wanted to make sure that we extended thanks for that. So.